Secretary General of the United Nations, the representative of the chairperson of the African Union, all distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to Uganda. There is a prepared speech which will be distributed, but I will make my remarks without necessarily following that prepared speech. First of all, we are very happy that you have come to Uganda in such big numbers. Thank you so much. Secondly, we want to thank you for having honored us with chairing the NAM for this period. Thank you for putting so much trust in us. Thank you. When I look at what's happening in the world, I feel quite sorry because people are behaving as if life has just started. Yet, the human race has been here for 4.5 million years. Most of that time, the human beings were living only in Africa. So I normally like to joke with friends that all of you here are former Africans, all of you. Because you all started here, but migrated out of Africa to populate other parts of the world. Now, in these 4.5 million years, we have two categories of problems. Category number one is oppression of man by nature. That's how it all started, where you have natural phenomena like floods, like drought, like a disease, like earthquake, like hunger, oppressing people. However, man, because of the intelligent brain, has been finding solutions along the way. Started by making primitive tools, solve some problems. Then, 1.5 million years ago, invented fire, and the invention of fire caused big changes in society. That's how people stopped from living in trees and started living in caves. And that's why we here in Uganda, we regard the development of science and technology as the primer of human change, of societies, of changes in society. So therefore, all this time, when the different societies improve capacity to control the extremes of nature, improve science and technology, domesticate agriculture, like happened many years ago, then invention of iron, then the invention of the steam engine, and the other subsequent changes, the Industrial Revolution, we should feel happy for the whole of humanity. We should not be selfish that we should monopolize technology and advancement and affluence. When China was transforming, although we were far from China, we benefited from the changes in China. I remember in 1986, the price of steel had gone down to $200 per ton. And when we were trying to develop our steel industry here, we were told that no, don't bother with the steel industry because there is no demand for steel in the world. That there is a glut, what they call the glut. There's too much steel for your industry to be economic. This was, however, false. Yes, there was little demand for steel because at that time, prosperity was only in a small area of the world. Prosperity was in Western Europe, North America, and Japan. And that's why so the demand for modernization items was small because the beneficiaries were few. But when China started transforming, modernizing, and India and Vietnam and other Asian countries, and even Africa to some extent, when they started modernizing, the price of steel went from $200 per ton to $900. So the transformation in China, in Asia, in other parts of the world, directly affected us here. The price of copper went up, the price of steel went up, the price of cement went up a bit because of the changes that were taking place in other parts of the world. So therefore, it's not correct for people to mix up issues. I've told you that operation of man number one has been operation by nature. Here in Africa, we are still suffering from a bit of that. We get droughts, we get famine sometimes in some of the countries, lack of electricity, disease, we still have those burdens. But we are struggling to control them. Here in Uganda, we are struggling. Now, the second operation is operation of man, by fellow men. This came along when man was beginning to advance. Smaller groups of human beings started trying to control other groups. This is what causes now conflict among the human groups. So therefore, the two conflicts must all be well understood. Once there is advance in the control of nature through science, we should be very happy, and there should be no conflict. I don't see why anybody would worry that country X and B and C have come up out of poverty. They have come up, they are more prosperous. After all, if you want to do business, why do you want to do business with a poor man, a poor partner? How much would he buy from you? Why don't we want all our partners to be prosperous so that we can do better business? Business is production and consumption. If you produce and nobody buys, there will be no business. So it is very important for all of us to understand this dynamic of business has two sides, production and consumption. In Europe, when there was changes in Europe, after Adam Smith helped Europe to understand the efficiency of the private sector, in his book of 1776, The Source of the Wealth of Nations, there was rapid growth of industries. but consumption remained stagnant. And in 1929, the capitalist system collapsed. Why? Demand. You cannot talk of business if you don't talk of the purchasing power of all your partners. If you look at the GDP of Africa now, I think it is like maybe 4 trillion now, but this is too small. If the GDP per capita of Africa was about 20,000, given that we are now 1.5 billion people here in Africa, you'd be talking of a GDP of 30 trillion. Why should Africa have a GDP of about 4 trillion now, when we are 1.5 billion? If the GDP per capita went to about 20,000, you can see, I think we would go to about 30 trillion. If it goes to 25,000, we would go maybe to 45 trillion. And our partners would benefit because we would buy more from them. So therefore, I salute the non-aligned movement. Our elders who started it did us a great service.